to invite Professor Dan Chitoiu to address us on tradition and novelty in a globalized culture. Welcome, Professor Dan.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure and an honor for me to be here and to learn about your very high level of academia in this university, and also to discover with a special emotion so many things in your culture and spirituality. So this was one of my very powerful experiences abroad. And indeed, Africa, it's a wonder place, a wonderland. So I'll start from what it is global culture or globalized culture. This is a new phenomenon made possible by technology, especially by technologies, and it has some consequences on human experience. We can see everywhere. But today people, especially young generation, who use a lot internet, Facebook, and so on, seems to be more and more interested about what can be described as spirituality. But this new form of spirituality, it's a critical, a little more confused form of spirituality, because they are searching for, and they are trying to be personal, to fulfill their individual needs. And this has, one consequences, the kind of laxity, the kind of what I want to do is the good thing to do in what we call spiritual practice. But what is this spiritual practice? What it is a spiritual practice? It is connected with religion. It is necessarily connected with religion or not. It seems we can discover more and more today the interest for a non-religious spirituality. And let's ask ourselves, this is a good thing or a bad thing? Why this evolution? Probably because the understanding of religion is problematic for the young generation. And this because they don't understand very well the need of rigor, the need to have rules. It seems that rules are not good for many. But there is a problem here, because what is a spiritual practice? Not a spiritual life. A spiritual life is a higher level. A spiritual practice means some habits having every day, I don't know what shapes they can have, like many shapes. And this habit, as any habit, produce in time some effects. And these are the effects on your humanity or on your internal experience. So it changes. It changes yourself. Any practice change yourself. Anyhow. So, if somebody do this experience of spiritual practice using his own rules, his own made rules, he will get some consequences sooner or later. But this can be problematic, or they can harm him. What a spiritual tradition or a religion has, it's an experience, many generations. So there is a pattern of how you should practice, no? Your practice should have some rigor, should have some coordinates. This is the point, because you see, there are doctrines. We know very well about what it means, a doctrinal aspect of religion. But beyond that, every human has more or less his path. So he's paying attention more or less to the doctrine, but anyhow, he's embodied. He embodies the doctrine in his way. A religion tradition, or a spiritual tradition, rather a spiritual tradition of a religion, pays attention more to the effects, because it has many generations of experience. So I think we have these two opposite situations. People who now, because of capitalism, are more and more individualistic. Young generations are more and more individualistic. But also, because this is a human need, they need to have a kind of experience, of spiritual experience. So they are trying, more or less conscious or unconscious, to develop something, you see? But on the other hand, there is this requirement coming from tradition that you cannot do, you cannot assume something without a kind of verification, let's say. Because otherwise you'll harm yourself sooner or later. And this is the dialectic between being too open and too strict. But there is also a problem. And I think the academic community, and especially philosophers, have to deal with this. And because we are in this conference co-hosted by the Council of Research on Values and Philosophy, it's a matter of research here. Because we need to do some kind of research of values, no? But how? The problem is we lack good instruments. Why? I'll try to say why. I discovered some text of a French phenomenologist, Michel Henry. He died in 2000, and he has a book called Barbarism, Barbarian, Savage, let's say. The modernity was barbarian. Why? Because they neglected life. And how they did? To pushing too much to rationalism, to consider that our rational capacity is the highest capacity, is the only good capacity, and the senses should be organized by rationality, by ration. And the basic of this was in the early modernity, the assumption that came from science, from that science, that reality could be described through just through mathematical way. So everything can be put in an equation. And Michel Henry says, but what about life? What we are doing with life? We are losing life. And he says, this is barbarism. This is barbarian. And at least in Europe, but also in this globalized world, this pattern of understanding culture, of understanding tradition, of understanding ethos, was perpetuated, and unfortunately in academic life, through academic life. So now we need to change. So this is why I think we have to gather some research teams on this aspect, how we can understand, how we can work, how we can put in work life. Because each community especially in Africa, as much as I can understand, this is very important. Each community developed a specific pattern of spiritual practice, no? Each tribe, each culture. So, if you apply these modern patterns, you cannot understand nothing. So, how we can develop a good instrument, a good research on this? Probably starting from community, but how? Through a kind of hermeneutics, and this is the role of philosopher. Philosophers should, because usually this kind of research was given to anthropologists. But anthropologists, what can provide? A kind of list of facts, of images, he can describe. But there is a need to put together things and to what the Vice Chancellor told today, to find out what is the hierarchy of values in that culture. And this is somehow a teamwork of phenomenologists, or on this approach, a very careful approach, because life is very sensitive. You can lose through your fingers what it does matter in a culture. And we should to work to find out what could be the tools. This is a very serious problem. I have this in my spiritual practice in my Romanian cultural area, because we have exactly the same problem. Exactly the same problem. There were put it in action some improper tools in describing our spiritual life. So what I'm doing in my university is to try to correct this, to try to say, be careful about what you are doing, especially in the academic research, because what you can do is to do a very fake understanding of a culture. And we are guilty many times about this. So I think it's a good time to reflect more, and maybe to do some team research on this, and to put on the table what should be the proper tools for an authentic research on values. Thank you very much.